Hey everybody, welcome on back to the Anchorage, and we've got three great stories going on today. So we're going to be getting into it in a second here. We've got a new border graphic, we've got LMDE 7 that's been released, and I've got something going on related to Matrix Chat. So we're going to see that today on TUXQuest. All right, guys, welcome on back. And this is TUXQuest. And like I was mentioning before, one of the first major things that happened with this is I've got a new border graphic. So here's the main one that I use for the channel and stuff like that. And when I do some stuff when I'm sitting here at the computer. But I just recently just got a new asset of sorts. Brief description. It's originally not mine. It was actually given to me or gifted to me, or however you want to pronounce or describe it. I am a kind of a staff member of sorts for the YouTube channel Switch to Linux by Tom Morosky and his two little wonderful kitties. And we were chatting one night, and I happened to show something. I did a screen capture and did a few little tweaks to it and said, "Hey, look at this! Isn't this awesome? Maybe someday I could maybe do a supporter contributing video or something like that." And he goes, "Well, I can give you the asset. You can have the asset and everything." And I'm like, "Okay, so it's called an asset. Okay, me, it's just a border graphic, but neither sense." And he sent it to me, and so what I did is, because I don't want it to be a blatant copy of his work, especially if I'm using it on my channel for my own content. So what I did was I took it and I've played with it, and I changed colors, and I've changed a couple of pieces to it, and I'll show you what those are all about. So why don't we take a look at it? And here we are. This is the border graphic. So what I did is, for my channel, I've got the forest background on the far outer edge. I've got the tux here from his graphic, and tux down in that corner in the lower left there. And I changed the logo from the Switch to Linux logo to the Anchorage logo, and there's that. And up here is, of course, is a site address of sorts. I don't have a website, however, I am on social media. This one here is my Fediverse one, which is kind of sort of my main one, because I can say the most on it. I've got like 5,000 characters I can post. So that's my main one for the channel. And I'm not, I am out on X, and I am out on Blue Sky for announcements only. And I've turned X into announcements only, for not only for myself, but for Switch to Linux, as well as the Anchorage for Switch to Linux. And I have have my own logo, which I'll show you in a second here. But we've got the cut corners up there and down here, and it's a nice wider image, so we can get that guy in here, and we can get a nice good view of that in there a little bit. I'm actually, you can tell from the chair, I've got it slightly like this so that I don't block it. Otherwise, it's looking like that. So I do that. And another additional thing I'm going to do, and you're going to see it, is right along in this stretch is a title bar that I can use for a topic. I can write, provide text on a topic. So I'm going to be doing that. And we're doing that in a second, because I want to show you a couple of the ones that we've got going on for Switch to Linux. I just need to switch this over to there. And so when I do videos for Switch to Linux specifically, it's going to be this guy here. So instead of the forest on the outer border, we've got Tom's circuit board that he uses with his. I just recolored it to the green. I did leave this. This is the switchtolinux.com website. And as a little bit of a not props or something like that, but Switch to Linux's main color is yellow, or a shade of yellow. So I'm leaving that just as it is. And you can see right here, I've got the Anchorage for Switch to Linux logo, which is a play on the original Switch to Linux logo, which is similar. It's a toggle button with I can point in the right direction here. It's got a toggle button with Tux, and there we go. And it says Switch to Linux on it. And his is in a 3D kind of artistry, and that's his own thing. Me, I like more stuff that's more flat and just straight up provides the information of what it's trying to convey. So there we've got that. So, and just an example of the actual title bar. I'll actually pop that on here real quick, like that. This is what it looks like. So that's what we've going on for that. So let's see. Let's see if I can get myself back to where I was, and that would be here. And yeah, so like I said, this is the border graphic. So with that, why don't we actually bring that topic into here? We've got a new border graphic. Here we are. So as you can see, we've got all the graphics there. Got the forest on the far outside. I've got that up there. I've got Tux over there and down here. And I've got my logo there. And I've got the, the text with the title bar for the segment I'm working on. So yeah, that is, hope you like it. Let me know what you think down below, and we are going to move on to the next topic. All right, so we are going to be moving on to our next topic. So why don't we see what that's going to be? LMDE 7 was released, and we've got a great article out here from It's Foss News, and basically LMDE 7 Gigi. I want to say Gaiji so much, but anyway, Gigi. Linux Mint Debian-based alternative gets a major upgrade. A stable Debian base meets a polished Linux Mint desktop experience. So what is involved in that? Well, it happened to get the new or newer Linux kernel 6.12. Okay, that's very good. And also the new TMP behavior. One of my associates, Dan, on Switch to Linux, he's tried out Debian Trixie straight up. And one of the things that he was running into was he'd be running videos of different things, and and it would just be building up memory and just taking it up. He's got, what was it, 32 gigs of RAM or something like that, and it's just like, it would, suddenly it would have like 4 and then 6 and then 8, and just slowly building up, and it would never release. He'd close it out and it wouldn't get rid of it and stuff like that, and he was complaining about it all the time, and he figured it out finally, that it's because of this new behavior. So temporary files are stored in the RAM instead of the disk, whereas before, temporary files were kept in the disk, but now they're being kept in RAM. But a nice little piece of information is that anything sitting in there for 10 days gets deleted, and over in the var directory, the temporary directory for var, that clears after 30 days. So that's something to keep not so much keep an eye on, but to be aware of. Some people may want to do cron jobs that will clear that out, or other scripts, things of that sort. And some new user interface refinements. So we got, was it the libad Weta library now works properly with the Mint themes instead of ignoring them. Thank you very much. And things of that sort. Moreover, gray colored interface elements throughout LMDE now have a blue tint mixed in. Linux Mint is famous for its green, so why didn't they make it green? That's just me thinking out loud. Inclusion of apt 3.0 or apt, whichever you prefer. So it's a new version of apt. So that's the package management software, and some core application upgrades. So software manager explains packages or the types much better now. Hypnotics gets 2 viewing modes for watching IPTV streams. Similarity sticky notes now works on Wayland sessions and features rounded corners. So Wayland is a desktop type or something to that effect. I don't like Wayland. I like X. I'm going to be using X until you can't use X anymore. So that is everything regarding that there. And if I can get that out of there, get that step there, and get myself back to here. So yeah, so I am going to be using LMDE 7. Now my Linux box, Solaria, which is, and if I have my fingers here, it's this one, because they're literally both under the desk in front of my knees. So I have to sit back a little bit, which I've gotten used to, and I don't have any problem with it. So I use LMDE 6 on Solaria, and that is my daily driver. I log into Linux Mint, LMDE 7, which is the Debian Edition, like I said before. And, that is my personal productivity machine, and it's much better. This machine, which is this guy on the right of me, is currently Windows 10. And ironically, Microsoft has stopped support for Windows 10 as of the 14th, or right around the 14th. At the end of the day, the 14th. So on the 15th, they don't provide security updates, namely stuff like that. Windows 10 still works. I'm using it right now to take this video because this is my video editing box. And it will remain my video editing box with LMDE 7. That's going to be coming out. So, or it has come out. Excuse me. What am I going to do with these Windows applications? You can do it. I can do it on Linux Mint just fine. And I'm going to be keeping it on this box. All of my files are on an NVMe drive that's attached to the motherboard. I will just remove that drive, take care of the upgrade, stick it back in there, and Linux will see it just fine. I may need to update paths in applications, but I'll do that as I need them. Because I've got so many, I have to do it a lot and stuff like that. So that's what we're doing on that. So yeah, I'm going to be doing that. Am I going to do this upgrade right away? No, I'm not, because Debian Edition 7 just came out. I'm going to be giving it some time, like a month or so, maybe longer. Getting towards the end of the year, I might just wait till after the year kicks over and just do it when I do my annual maintenance. Then again, I might not. I don't know. I haven't decided. So give it some time. I'm also going to upgrade Solaria, my daily driver, with LMDE 7 at roughly around the same time. I'll do one machine on one day, and I'll do the other machine on another day. Which order I'm going to do it in, I have no idea. So there we go. All right, so that was basically LMDE 7 having come out. Now, yeah, granted, today is Tuesday, the following Tuesday from the release. It was released last week as you're seeing this. I'm recording this on Saturday, so yeah. So my apologies for the late notice on my channel, but I had already done a video last week, so I didn't want to do it too soon. And besides, it just runs my head into the ground, so needed a little break. There we go. So we are going to be going on to the next thing regarding Matrix, so let's hold on for a sec. Okay, and so now we're going to be moving on to the next topic, and that is going to be a matrix server is planned. How is a matrix server going to be planned? Well, first we need to understand what matrix is. So why don't we take a look to see what that's all about? Matrix is an open source network for secure, decentralized communication. So basically, you can chat with friends, family, communities, and co-workers. So you would need a chat piece of software. Namely, now the one that Matrix actually does is actually called Element. And I can't really show that. Well, I could show it to you, but I don't actually have it installed on this machine. And I could install it on a virtual machine, but I didn't set that up. So, but basically, a cozy, safe, supercharged place for your community. And Switch to Linux happens to be on Matrix, and through the server through matrix.org, which is what this place is. So, and this is the website for matrix.org, and and there are home servers. There is a main server with matrix.org, but that is over in, and I could be wrong, but I think it's in England specifically, but it could be in the EU as well. So that is something that has had a possible bit of drama in recent months, and regarding age verification and things of that sort in the EU specifically. And matrix.org basically said that they may have rules coming out where they need to verify their age with their ID and whatever, and things like that. And however, that is specific. The notice they gave us was specifically for their instance, and you don't have to stay on one instance. There are many different instances of Matrix home servers out there, and each of them have their own rules, and they implement themselves, or for themselves, and also for where they are accordingly. And I've got plans. I'm going to try to get my own home server up and running using this little guy right here. I'm going to poke it out in a second while I dig it out of here. Onto this guy. This is a Raspberry Pi 5, and I'm going to be using a Home Lab suite, software suite, that's called UnoHost. At least that's what I'm going to try using, and implement a Matrix home server on this little guy. But I can't use just this little guy. I need some additional hardware. I need a case for this because I've determined it won't fit in the Folkvanger case. This is going to have to sit just off to the side of it in its own case. And of course, I was talking with Mythos Omega recently about different cases, about Raspberry Pi in general, and in different cases, and came across one. It was the Iron Man case, which makes it look like a gamer case. It's got a glass side panel, things of that sort, and it would look great, especially when I retrofy it. It would look even better. Otherwise, it looks like a random piece of gamer computer. But that's not the only piece of hardware that I need. One of the other pieces of hardware that I'm going to need for this is, I could use this guy right here. This is the micro SD card slot for the OS and stuff like that. However, there's speed limitations on this because it is SD card technology, and there is a limitation on that of sorts. I mean, in general, no, but if you want something faster, there is, there is a board that can be added to it using the GPIO, general purpose input and output, and also on these there is a PCI Express port here. This also has two more right here, but this one would actually use that one in the front. And additional boards, some of us may call them daughter boards, but these are add-on boards. And I just received one yesterday that I want to use, and that is this guy. This is an NVMe hat, as they call it with raspberries. They call it a hat. And I can use any length of NVMe solid state drive, SSD. So NVMe SSD, and I can use any length with this board. The one that Raspberry Pi has out, it's certainly great and everything, but it basically restricts you to using one size of SSD, and that's the really short one. That one there. This one can hold a full-length SSD, so that leaves my options open because I have to worry about the cost of it because I don't have any money, as it were. So my budget is very low on this. So if I can get what I need on a full length far cheaper than I would on that shorter length, then that's what I'm going to do. Sorry if you heard that, but my hand hit the microphone. On these, these chips get very, very, dare I say, hot, but anything to help get rid of the heat, so that the heat doesn't kill those chips. Nothing came with the Pi itself. This just came in the box by itself, straight up, and then it's up to me to introduce my own cooling solution. So I did get some heat sinks that are aluminum. They're anodized aluminum, black, because that's just awesome. And I've got them in this little packet right here. You can see them. Those are the bases of them. You just peel off these little blue pieces, and then there it is. And these look like they're really, really good because the one for the CPU chip, which happens to be this big one right here, it's contoured, and the heat sink for that chip is contoured as well, so it'll cover the entire chip and not have any gaps. That is just I just think that's awesome by itself. What else am I going to need to get? Well, I need to get a power cord, and the 5s use a USB-C on this port here, so I'm going to have to get one for that. So there's that. And I'll just have to get something that'll be useful for that, and then plug it directly into a power socket, which I have on a strip down below behind the futon. I've got like 2 spots left I can use. Yeah, my power setup is embarrassing, but it's necessary in order to get this stuff running. Not everything I've got stuff over there too. I got the TV, I got the Atari. Is that all I got plugged in over there? Yeah, I think so. Stuff like that. I've got the lamp that's up here, the shining light on me right now. So got that. Sorry if you heard that again. I got that. What else do I have in here? Nothing of any consequence. This is the gift bag that the Pi came in. I'm going to keep it for storing things. There's the gift card. I'm going to be removing that, and I think I'm going to be replacing this ribbon with some leather. I have to decide on that, but neither sense. Moving back onto the Matrix. Other stuff that I got to do for hardware is I got to get, we're just talking about a case. I have to get a case for it. And of course, talking with Mythos, we were talking about, how, gamer looking like case, Iron Man is excessive. It's overkill, stuff like that. However, as far as the general style goes, I do like it. I do appreciate it. And, you know, considering what I want to be doing, if I can get a Matrix home server up and running on this thing, then, you know, it's for a specific purpose. I want to get one, I mean, for myself, you know, so that I can log in as myself from my server, as it were, and you know, move all of my permissions from my existing logins over to that, and also have you know, have that one, and then also have a backup. But I'll copy everything over and get myself onto the switch to Linux matrix and get everything copied over as necessary. What my ultimate ideal goal is to have a place for Switch to Linux to go should it decide that it wants to jump ship off of matrix.org. If this verification kind of thing starts running amok and starts affecting the existing Switch to Linux matrix channel, site, whatever, the connection, the chat room, if it gets affected negatively enough, may want to jump ship. And I would very much like to have a place for it to go and provide that as a volunteer contributor basis, kind of like that, and host it for Switch to Linux myself, because why not? So there we go. That's going to be doing with that. So, I mean, I have other things I need to be getting for it. I mean, I already have a network cable, so I'm all set there. As far as a subdomain goes, I go through Namecheap for my domain that I already have, which is RagnarAnKorage.xyz. And I believe, I haven't done it lately, but I believe it goes out to here. I could be wrong, but you know, don't quote me on that. What else do I need hardware-wise? I think that might be it. However, if I if I need to have an active cooler on it, I can certainly get one of those. Those are like less than $15, I think. Off the top of my head, I haven't looked at those prices, but they are very cheap and very affordable. So I'd have to look at that, depending on the case. But then again, you know, I might get the active cooler anyways, which is basically a fan that sits over this, or sits over in this area over here, and there's heat sinks that sit over here and suck the air into it, and it blows it out to the side or the front or whatever, stuff like that. But at the same time, because I've got that NVMe hat, that's probably not going to be a viable solution. So the case would have to have exhaust fans on it at least, and I would want a case where all the cables are in the back, nothing that's on the side or the front or the top even. No, I wouldn't want anything like that. One case that I did happen to see, it was from Fractal, where they did a Fractal North. The North is the model type of their PC case, where it has wood slats on the front, has 3 wooden slats on the front, and the thing is absolutely beautiful. But it seems like they only used it for a particular exhibition, and it's not for sale on the website or anything like that. It didn't have any active cooling involved with it. It was all passive cooling, and meaning just vents essentially. And there may have been fans in the front behind the slats, but I don't know for sure off the top of my head. I'd have to check that out and stuff like that. And the very top, the power on the display and the audio stuff these ports poked out of the top. I wouldn't want that. So I would want a case where all the cables can be threaded through the back or connected to ports that are connected on the back. So do that. As far as the hardware goes, I think that's pretty much going to be it. After that, I'll just get the most recent release of the Unohost suite software, get it all installed, and then start playing with installing that, getting it up and running, taking care of the subdomain for people to connect to. And because I'm on a dynamic IP through Comcast, I am going to need to institute a service that will account for the dynamic behaviors of the IP changing, because it changes. And a service such as no IP could rectify that or mitigate that problem, jump that hurdle, things of that sort. So I'm hoping to get Matrix up and running, and I'm going to be playing with that, and there we go. So that is all of our main content for it, and we're going to be talking about one other thing that I didn't mention in the description or in the thumbnail or anything like that. So I'm going to be doing that in a moment here. So why don't we switch over and take a quick break? All right, so now that that's all basically done, here it is. All that topic is finished and all that happy joy. So we'll come back to here and everything's happy. That one last little piece is, is my camera. You can see the camera. It doesn't look super mega clear. It's just a webcam that I've got on top of the monitor. However, I've got this guy. I've got my cell phone. This isn't my main cell phone. My main cell phone is on the coffee table back there. This is the one that I had before that one. And I've got software on here that will allow me to use it as a webcam, and also I can use it on here and connect it to OBS, which I already have a connection set up and everything like that. I just have to turn it on, turn on the software, and then turn on my, what they call it, a source, and then there we are. But what I want to do is I want to test it to see if I can get a sharper image using this camera right back here, which I know works, but as far as setup goes, because of what I've got on my desk here, stuff like that, it's kind of propped up. It may be off to the side, which is over that way a little bit, sitting in front of my second monitor. But I'm going to be playing with this as well. This is my, and I apologize for the sake that it's a selfie stick, but it is a selfie stick, but it's a telescoping one. I could do that, and it can also be used as a tripod. So there we go. And I can also, turn this a couple of notches, and I can hold it like this. Kind of like holding it, and it's got a button right here. It connects through a Bluetooth connection, so I can take selfies. I don't do selfies with the selfie stick. I am not that nerdy, and I'm not that TikTok-y. Yeah, TikTok is evil. Anyways, but got the phone, got the setup. It does work. I keep it charged, and I do keep it maintained. I update the firmware on here and everything like that. I keep that all up to date as best as I can. I may not actually need to, because if the software is working, why bother upgrading? Well, mainly because I have to connect to the router through the Wi-Fi. I'm going to try to do it through a cable, through a USB cable, but if I ultimately can't, then I'll just have to rely on the Wi-Fi. And that being the case, you know, if it can talk to the Wi-Fi, it can talk to the interwebs. So I can probably set up a Pi-hole to block anything coming in and out from that unit. I don't know, or I can block it on the router. I'll figure it out. But that is everything for this edition of TUXQuest. So please leave a comment down below if you happen to like anything, don't like anything. Say what you will. I appreciate any comments. And there we go. So thank you very much for coming along. Skál, and we'll talk to you later.